Hello everyone, my name is Alex Cristia and I was asked to share my path to an ERC consolidator. I really hope that this is of some use to you. I personally doubt that this is one size fits all kind of grant. So I hope you find something useful, but I'm not sure. We'll see. Okay, so I thought that maybe it would be useful to share with you that I'm not from Europe originally. In fact, some of my career was in Argentina and some of it was in the US. I came to Paris as a postdoc a while ago, and I did another postdoc before coming back as a researcher to France in 2013. I was also asked to share a little bit about what my previous grant and award experience was. As you can see here, basically as a postdoc already, I applied for a grant together with my former PhD advisor. And since then, I've been always looking for funding, and I've been quite lucky. And in particular, one award that was really useful was this one. And so that award allowed me to develop the main idea that became my ERC project, and allowed me to collect key data that I could refer to at the time. Another important grant was this one, which was an international grant, which allowed me to build a network that basically helped me make the project feasible, but also the writing quite acceptable. So I'll go back to that in a moment. So the first question that for me was raised was why an ERC? Why go through the trouble of applying to this funding source where the proportion of people who get it is so low and the competition is so fierce that it's not a question of merit to the end. Sorry for the people who are organizing this panel. I think to a certain extent this is just a question of luck. But for sure, it's even if it's a question of luck, it doesn't mean that we don't work for it. So and we don't do it on purpose. So for me, it was really a purposefully decision, and so I really thought about what was the right funding scheme for the project that I had in mind. So this project that I had in mind was really large, so I knew a national grant wouldn't be enough. In addition, national grants, at least in France, always involve some kind of collaboration with other researchers. And in fact, the idea that I had was something that would happen physically in my lab, and that would involve only my team. So it was really a project where you had to be working close together physically. COVID didn't help, but that was the idea. And so it also meant that some of the previous instruments I had applied for, like an international collaborative grant, which could be quite large, wasn't appropriate for the project I had in mind. In addition, the idea that I had was high risk, and that meant that many typical grants wouldn't be a good place to apply. And also, to be perfectly honest with you, I had seen what an ERC project looked like, and I thought that looks really fantastic. It looks like an amazing experience. And I was really, really lucky to see it in my lab. 3 other people had gotten ERC, 2 people had gotten starting grants, and 1 of them went on to get a consolidator grant. And then a 3rd person had gotten an advanced grant. So I had seen these projects, large projects coming together in the past, seeing how much you can accomplish when you get equipment funding and you get all this salary money. So I was really excited about the possibility of doing this. Even so, I didn't plan things very well. I actually decided to apply on December 12, 2019, according to my records. That I had been hesitant for a very long time. I knew the deadline was in February, and at the last minute I decided to apply. I shortly after met with the senior official who told me that it was way too late and there was almost no point, but I might as well try. And so that's when I started drafting B1. Let me be clear, I'm not saying that everyone should start basically a month and a half before the deadline. But for me, I had a really good idea of what the content, what the project was, what like the experiments, so to speak, were going to be. So it really was a question about how to convey this clearly, how to motivate this, And I'll go back to what was really hard in the writing, that at least in my experience. So then for the next month or so, I worked on it quite a bit. One of the first things I did is I got together with someone else from my department. I just sent out an email saying, is anyone else applying? And if so, do you want to have some accountability buddies? And so we created a schedule by which we had to finish B1 and B2. And we gave each other feedback, but mostly it was to make sure that we stuck to the schedule and we actually did it to the end. So now that I had a schedule, I created a first version of B1, which I circulated both to people in my own field and to people outside of my field, to make sure that even someone who's kind of in your field but is not especially will be able to understand what you did. And so what I asked them wasn't to give me detailed feedback. I asked them to read these pages in 10 minutes and then give me back their impression. And it could be quite broad, and it could be one paragraph, or it could be one question, something very short. So I asked very little of each person, and I assumed that they would be like typical overworked committee members who have to read a lot of these proposals. So I put a lot of time pressure so that it would read superficially. They would read superficially and still get the gist, hopefully. And so then I created the once I had the B1 was pretty good, I created a B2 by copy pasting into a new document and then writing, like expanding on things. And then that I circulated among specialists in 2 different ways. And anyhow, I asked them, for some of them, I asked them like 2 one-line questions or 2 one-line remarks. Some people send me more questions, but still I was asking something very small from each person. I did share sections of B2 with 3 close colleagues, and I asked those people for detailed feedback. I don't know how many drafts there were of each. I'm saying 10, but there were a lot. I was working on this on and off all the time. When everything was ready, then the final paragraph, that's like the overarching description, that's something I worked with a lot with the senior official at the time. Basically, I would write something and she would say what she understood, and then I would tweak it until she got it. And I don't know in what way any of this is helpful. So I'm just explaining everything to you, and I don't know, if you want to do exactly the same, then good luck. I hope it works for you too, but I don't know. Anyhow, so overall, 11 people gave me feedback on the written material, and then 2 more people just shared their own proposals. They didn't read mine, but they just kindly shared everything that they had written, which really helped, particularly with sections like where you have to tell your story. That was an uncomfortable exercise, but by reading how someone else did it, that really helped me. So the hardest thing in this phase of the submission was getting the balance right between the proposal sounding appropriately risky and appropriately feasible. And honestly, this is what I worked on a lot. Sometimes I would give the proposal to someone and they would their one-line remark would be, this is never going to work. And so then I knew that I went too far in the risk direction, and so I would boost my previous experience, I would boost the references to previous work, like expand the space that they would take on the page. And then I would give it to someone else, and that person would say, well, I don't understand what's new. I mean, you're not taking any risks. You could apply for some other grant. And so then I knew I had overshot on the other direction. And so really what took me a long time and ended up having to do with putting words in specific positions is to getting this balance of innovation. This really sounds like high risk, but I know you can do it. So that's my impression. Sometimes goes past and I hear that I passed the first round. I'm very happy and completely freaked out. In addition, they say that the interviews will be online and no one knew how they were going to happen. And at that time, we couldn't have any slides. I don't know if for you guys, you also don't have any slides. But let me tell you, it was an interesting experience. I knew I had to give a 10-minute pitch. I knew it had to be understandable to everyone. I knew the committee was going to be tired and they would be hearing all of these, over and over and over throughout the whole day. So it had to be perfect. And so I first wrote it out and I practiced dozens of times alone until the text was perfect. Everything that I needed to say was there. That was completely useless because then I started to show it to people and people gave me feedback on it. And so at the beginning, I would show it to 1 or 2 people at each week. I would either record myself and send it to them so they could watch it whenever they want, or just do it for them live. And there again, I had people from different fields and not just specialists. And at that point, I basically got a lot of advice on pausing, which you can see I don't do, and gestures, which you see I do, but there really some people gave me feedback about like specific positioning of concepts on space and things like that, because you don't have any slides, so you have to do something where you can help people remember what you're talking about. And then finally, I gave a practice trial in my lab with groups of people. And I did 3 trial runs at CNRS, at DNS, and with my support group, which used to be the person with whom we exchanged the written material, and 1 more person that got added. And so throughout this whole process, 23 people gave me feedback. So I feel I'm completely blessed with amazing collaborators and colleagues who really helped me get this project up and running. The other thing I did is, throughout all of this experience, every time I did a practice, I would write down all the questions anyone ever asked me, and I put them all together into a document that was 50 pages. So now you're going like, this person is insane. Yes, it did go insane. This took me hundreds of hours, literally. I time log. Anyhow, so I did this document whereby each question had a reply, and some of them had like a 3-part reply, where the first part was a reference to a paper and the second part was a reference to a census, and I memorized data and statistics so that I could give them, for a very difficult question, a reply that would take me 30 seconds. Now, I won't tell you how the actual oral went. Of course, I'm going to say that all of this preparation helped me. I might have overshot it, but that's what I did. Anyhow, so that was my path, and I wonder what your path will be. I hope I didn't bore you, and that you can take some kind of, I don't know, ideas of what not to do from this, or what to do. Okay, take care, good luck, and the chances are low, but if you don't try,